Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Assalamu alaikum. We are back again with another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story. Man, this is a good one, as usual. This week, the cover, On the Brink of a Pit of Fire. This is volume number 41 of the paper, and this is number 25. The date on the paper is March 29th. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Naba. Once again, the question that I always ask, why this cover story?
Well, alaikum salam, Brother Troy. Let me read. You read the main header. Let me read this. Let me read the main header along with the subhead. On the brink of a pit of fire, a merciless war rages in Ukraine, bringing widespread death, millions of refugees, and a drive toward World War III. Nations are realigning, fueling global conflict, and ushering in the prophesied war of Armageddon. So it's really with that kind of understanding of what's happening to consider what should be the headline other than this. And so we are looking at this continued war in Ukraine, but we're also looking at it not just from the traditional news angle. We're looking at it through the lens of scripture prophecy, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the divine guidance and insight of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who has said unequivocally, this is not the war of Armageddon, but this conflict opens that door. And we see things unfolding more and more and more every day. So we talk about in this issue, for example, how nations are realigning. And so what we're talking about is really something bigger than just Russia and Ukraine, right? So we talk about nations realigning in what will become war to end all wars. Well, that's, of course, the prophesied war in the Bible, the War of Armageddon. So we want to bring not just the latest developments, but we want to bring knowledge, wisdom, and understanding about what is to come. So, but I think it's a very good article talking about what America faces. And we close, of course, with something from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and something from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan about what is happening and how this thing will continue to unfold and how America will eventually be drawn in. And you see the stage being set almost daily, right? The more there's devastation, the more there are these pictures of human loss, the more there's this depiction of Vladimir Putin as an out-of-control madman. And when you look just at the wider question of what will this war mean for Europe, as well as other nations, because remember, Ukraine and Russia account for about 30% of the wheat supply of the world. So what are you talking about? Well, you're talking about food. You're talking about a basic food stuff, bread. Do you know that when the price of bread goes up a certain level, you can have bread riots and food riots? So read this article and stay tuned to the Final Call every week. You can't afford to miss what we write.
Yes, sir. Praise to Allah. I mean, I really begin to get into this article and seeing that it's important that we make sure that we keep an eye on this because, of course, we know what we see across the shores and across the seas, across the oceans, that we know that that is coming to us as well. And
Yeah,
you can see the maneuvering, these different alignments. Um, and then as you mentioned, I believe last week, is that it's important that we make sure that we're aware of what's going on, but we don't take a position that we think that we're choosing Satan over Lucifer or the devil.
yeah,
that none
yeah,
of them are our friends. And
yeah.
even though, one thing I know that has been interesting to me is just really seeing that, how, even though the way that they portray Putin, just that it's always important to me, at least, to know that there's more than the story that's being presented.
Well,
But also take into consideration, that doesn't make that mean that person's good, but it just really shows you that there's more to the story than what you may think.
I mean, and again, you have to look at American propaganda.
Right.
America consistently calls those she would like to brand as an enemy, those she would like to brand as a dictator. She consistently, at a certain point, calls them a madman. Why? Because you can't reason with a madman. So if you can't reason with a madman, there are very few options in order to get to peace. Remember decades ago with Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, he was called what? The mad dog of Libya, right? Saddam Hussein, American ally for many years, could not have stayed in power without America's blessing and American support. At a certain point, when America decides he's got to go, he becomes what? A madman. Manuel Noriega, 1989, the U.S. invasion of Panama. Noriega, longtime American client, becomes dispensable, and now he becomes what? A madman. So when you look at the history of how America operates, you begin to see certain patterns. But the question becomes, those patterns yesterday, where are we today? And so we're at a different point today. And again, you got to really read this article and see what we put in to close it, which we thought was very important. The minister talking about where we are today and what is to come. Because if you know where we are today and you know what is to come, you can prepare for that which is to come. And you don't have to be taken aback, or you don't have to be totally in shock. But I'm telling you, Brother Troy, for me personally, watching the destruction of these Ukrainian cities, I was like, oh my God, there was something about, I don't know, the level of devastation or the Caucasian people or the world attention, but there was something about the level of devastation right there in Europe that had me ask the question, wow, is this the same kind of destruction that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said America would face? This kind of devastation? This kind? And the answer is absolutely yes. He said that this would happen in America. So we need to pay all kinds of attention to this. And we will continue every week to try to bring you insight and understanding. One of the things, when you look into this piece as well, we talk about profits and war machinery, right? When the president says he allocates such and such millions, well, there's $1 billion bill, and in that bill, there's armaments for Ukraine. Well, guess what? That means some company is going to be paid for these weapons of war.
Absolutely.
Right? So we want to just, we do not enjoy the suffering of any human being. But in order to get an understanding of what's going on, we have to go beyond the human tragedy and look at what else is going on. So again, I think I said this last week, and again, we got some very good analysts in the article this week, talking about what's going on. But I think that one of the things that I said previously was choices. And so we've got some people this week talking about America's choice, right? America's decision to spend money on armaments versus national development. So you just had the president who was elected on a program to rebuild America, but he was told that agenda was too expensive. But billions of dollars for war, no problem, let's go. That is a problem. And so we got people talking in the article about why that's a problem and asking the question about how sustainable is that type of activity. So, of course, that's tied to lobbyists, it's tied to corporations, it's tied to money, it's tied to projects. So, again, we hope to always bring some insight in terms of what is happening. And we hope that you will actually, take the time to read the pieces and give us some feedback. And hopefully they do bring a level of enlightenment or added information or perspective, because that is our mission. That's our goal. That's what we strive for.
Yes, sir. Praise to God. Thank you for that, Brother Naba. And moving on with just the mention of looking at how war is propagated and how they enter into wars, that we know and been taught that the war starts with a war of words, propaganda. All of those things are part of it. And in that same sentiment, for that we noticed the numbers are a little lower this week, and that was because one of the platforms in which we utilize to share the show actually has been temporarily suspended. The Collective Nine's YouTube channel is down because of we actually streamed the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan Savior's Day address via Spanish on there, and they decided to take that down. And I bring note to that because this is all connected, just the power of the propaganda machine, and how, just as they did with COVID-19, and I hope I'm not getting in trouble for saying this, and maybe the channel go down, but I'll just say that what was let out and the positions that were shared via social media and allowed to be spread via social media about that, they were censored. There's one voice that was shared and dominated the airways and has continued to be the case. And now the same we can see is going on with the war, as the Russian YouTube or Russian access to these alternative perspectives of what's going on. Those have also been shut down, and we can expect that to continue. And if you look at this other article piece, it kind of touches on that. And this is, of course, part of our special section on COVID-19 and the U.S. Policy of depopulation. But Dr. Ridgely has a piece on the real war is against the nations of righteousness. Conflict in Ukraine exposes Satan's ultimate aim. Can you talk a little bit about this, Brother Nava? Your mic is muted. I don't know if that's on purpose.
Yeah, I think this is a piece that people should really get into and take the time to consider the argument that is being made. And so you see just this continuing on different levels, these continuing instances of fear. And you see these continuing instances of insecurity. So as we look at what's happening in the world, this is again why it is important to get spiritual insight and divine guidance, so that we're not solely moved by what we see or what we think we see. Because whatever we see in particular on major media, and more even on social media, it only happens because somebody allows it to happen, right?
Absolutely.
So we want to definitely take a look at that. We want to We got another important story on a kind of different tact, which is the marathon continues. We're coming up on the third anniversary of the killing of our brother Nipsey Hussle, the great artist and entrepreneur. So we didn't want to let that pass without looking at him and how he continues to inspire.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is again, we strive to give you a balance of that which is important in the final call and valuable and useful.
And for those, we have an audience, of course, that even though you would think, and sometimes we may think everybody knows who Nipsey Hussle is and knows what happened with that. Can you give us a little bit about that and why it was so
Well,
important that
well,
this
Nip,
article
well,
was
Nip,
covered?
well, Nipsey Hussle was a great hip hop talent and entrepreneur. He came out of the gang culture of Los Angeles, but essentially what he did was really harness his brilliance into being an independent artist. And in being an independent artist, he started also to work on building something of his own. So at one point, he and his brother actually were sold a strip mall near where he used to hustle, that same place, right? He opened a store there. The store was really targeted by LAPD. People that came to the store were targeted by LAPD. The people who owned the strip mall where his store was, they were threatened that if they didn't evict him, that they would be shut down. But instead of evicting this brother and his brother who worked with him and others, the people who owned the strip mall literally sold it to them. And so it became an example of what's possible and what we can do. So we wanted to really, unfortunately, he was shot to death by someone. And that's another part of the story that we get into. So we want you to go ahead and read it. We think it's very valuable. And we think it's something that, people inspire, when as Muslims, when we have the funeral services for one of our brothers or sisters who depart this life, we ask that we not be deprived of their reward.
That's right.
Meaning there's always an impact left by someone's life. And so the loss of Nipsey Hussle's life has not meant there has not still been a significant impact. So we wanted to look at that and share some of that. And we think we got some good stuff with it. Sister Anissa Muhammad, one of our great young up and coming writers, did another really fantastic job. And so again, take a minute and see what we're talking about.
Praise to Allah. Thank you for that. And yeah, just you can see even from the pictures, a very powerful impact our brother had and continues to have by Allah's permission. So definitely make sure that you check that out. So let's see, keep it moving, and we got a lot of stuff that's going on. I don't know where you want to go from this. We
Well,
got
let's go. Let's see. Let's do a roundup real quick. Definitely, we got a couple stories about the census redlining. Important story. Will justice be delayed? Be justice denied again? This is again more developments in the case of Emmett Till and his families now, and the foundation run by his family, calling for the prosecution of the white woman who was at the center of the incident or the center of the encounter that led to this black teenager from Chicago who was visiting family in Mississippi, was accused of whistling on some way disrespecting a white woman, and he was basically pulled out of his family member's home in Mississippi. He was beaten, he was tortured, he was shot, then a huge fan was wrapped around his neck, and he was dropped in the river. So, but there's no statute of limitations on murder. So the federal government has not moved, said they can't, but now the family's fighting at the state level. I want you to read this piece because we raise a serious question. Why is it so difficult for us to get justice? Then we got after that, of course, Sunday afternoon service, just again showing the Muslims out in the community, serving people, good food, as well as partnering with University of Chicago medical students to try to help those who need help to get services. So again, this is what we do.
And of course, I'm biased about that article. Now I'm biased about all the articles, but a lot of permission. I was out there with our family as well. So praise be
Yeah,
to Allah.
I think we got a picture of you in the paper, but anyway.
Yeah. There's a few. There's a few. Praise be to Allah.
Then on page
There
12,
was no nepotism in that.
yeah, okay. Then on page 12, we got a new feature called Cop Watch. And what we plan on doing from time to time is just documenting, tracking the accusation, the charges, and convictions of those in law enforcement. It's a lot more than what you think. It's a lot more than what you think. So we want to pay attention to these different stories, so we can continue to, work to keep our community informed. Then on page 13, a really important story. UN, war in Ukraine to hurt poor nations in importing grain. This is again where we were talking about how important Ukraine is to grain and ultimately bread. And so many poor nations, they literally don't have their own wheat or their own grain. They just import it. How is that going to work? So you really want to read that piece because you're talking about nations in Africa, you're talking about nations in Asia. And then the question becomes, again, what does that do for this wider war that the minister has warned us is coming, right? What are all the different factors? You don't think food and food prices are one of them that cause instability in nations and cause nations to actually go to war? Remember what the scripture says, war and rumors of war.
That's right.
Right. So again, we are just trying to continue to inform you, but that we think that's an important story, and it's one that you should really check out. And we got some others that are important as well. Then we got, of course, this beautiful article by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, The Coming of Allah God. Really, you got to read that and understand what exactly is he talking about. But you want to read that. Then we got part 4, the Swan Song, by the installments from the minister's almost 5-hour address. So over the last 4 issues of the final call, every week, you have had an installment of this 5-hour presentation by the minister. Very enlightening, very insightful. And here you have 4 parts that you can actually go in, read, dissect. So we thank Allah for the opportunity and the blessing of being able to present such vitally important information. Then of course we have the Nation of Islam features, for our kind of traveler, unveiling number 19, How to Live. We have Africa Watch, which is our regular column. And this week, of course, we're talking about how the State Department tried to use jazz musicians to promote America's image. Then we got a special feature on pages 30 and 31. Major tribute to our late editor and brother, Askia Muhammad in Washington, D.C. Really beautiful story and really beautiful, beautiful photographs. Beautiful photographs by our sister out of Washington, D.C. And this was really, really just a great tribute, a fitting tribute. And the photographer is Nathia Lee. Very beautiful pictures, and we really thank Sister for providing us with such images. Then on page 32, very important story, Finding Tamika. In new Audible series, Erica Alexander confronts media bias seen when Black women go missing. Check it out. Find the podcast on Audible. 10 parts. You gotta just read this, and then you gotta go hear this, because this is a problem that's ongoing, and it's something that we will be covering in the near future as well. So we got our Sister Space feature as well in this little section. Then we got the next by a special moment, a special song. A white man's heaven is a black man's hell. This is by Sister Alberta Ann Muhammad, who is not only a long time follower and believer, but she's also the widow. She was married to our dear brother Askia Muhammad for many, many years. And so she writes, bearing witness to what the minister said about this song, A White Man's Heaven is a Black Man's Hell. During the Swan Song address, she writes about her personal experience with this song. So, we thank Sister Alberta for sharing that with us and bearing witness to the truth.
Praise you to Allah.
So I think, Brother Troy, we can kind of begin to wrap it up in a few minutes, I guess.
Praise you to Allah. Thank you. As usual, make sure that you check out the latest edition of the Final Call. Support the brothers in the community, in the streets, doing the groundwork. Don't look at the Final Call, and I think this cannot be stressed enough. Don't look at the Final Call as a newspaper in comparison to other newspapers that you may see. When you look at what's found in the paper, it's giving you divine guidance for this day and time. But the thing that's also very beautiful about it is that it's timeless. Is you can go back and pick up a paper from last year, and you're still going to find divine guidance for this day and time that we're living in right now. The beautiful article in the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from Savior's Day. Man, I've talked to several people who have really enjoyed the ability to go and actually read the words. But don't just read the words, because you're also blessed and have the opportunity to go back and revisit and listen to those words of divine guidance. So please make sure that you take the opportunity to do so. And of course, please make sure that you take the opportunity to spread the word. It looks like this week, because of us not being able to spread the word as we normally do, we don't have the following, but inshallah, God willing, we'll have our faithful followers and some new ones who will take the opportunity and be able to go back and watch the replay. With that said, another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story. Brother Naba, I'll give you the last word.
Well, we just say again, one, follow, like, share, subscribe. Support media which supports you. Stay in touch with us. Send us some messages. You can contact us through finalcall.com. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Let us know what you want to hear or what you want to see. Because it's all about you. It's all about the resurrection of the black man and woman of North America and the resurrection of the black man and woman of the world. So we are honored to serve you.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you. Another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story. Until next time, assalamu alaikum.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call digital edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Yep, less than 30.
Well, I guess we did it. So, maybe somebody like it. We keep going with it.
Yeah, well, we definitely got hit, dude.
Yeah.
But crazy too loud. We got to come up with some other strategies. We kind of already started having discussions with some of the tech people about what Savior's Day and what are the things that we can do